And head of the National Rural Revitalization Administration, Mr. Liu Huanxin, Deputy Director of the Office and member of the CPC Leading Group of MARA, Mr. Wu Hongyao. So first of all, I'd like to give the floor to Minister Tang. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The spring is back. It's the wonderful moment for us to start the plan of the new year. The CPC Central Committee and the State Council have co-published opinions on the priorities on promoting all-round agricultural development. It's also referred to as the #1 central document. For 19 years consecutively in a row, we have published the #1 document to give the policy tools to guide the work in this area. It has demonstrated towards the determination of the upper level of authorities and also delivered a lot of benefits to the farmers. More details for you. The background for the elaboration of the policy since last year, under the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, the three rurals work have overcome a lot of combined difficulties. For example, the weather and COVID-19, etc. We have realized a very good start of the 13th five-year plan period. The productivity of the crops has realized an increase. It has been stabilized above 1.3 trillion jin. And the capacity of raising pigs has also been restored. And the supplies as well as the food prices are also stable. Disposable income per capita in the rural areas reached more than 18,000 RMB, actual increase of 9.7%. The increase rate is faster than that of the citizens by 2.6 percentage points. And thirdly, we have consolidated the results of poverty elimination. We have strengthened the mechanism of assistance, and the working mechanism as well as the policies are also in place. We have realized the objective of sticking to the bottom line of avoiding a massive returning to poverty. Rural industries are developing very fast. We also have a 5-year plan already in place to improve the living environment for the farmers. We have been proceeding with the rural reforms to guarantee a happy life for the farmers. Indeed, we have yielded significant results in the rural development, which has been playing an important role in stabilizing the social development. For this new year, 2022, we are working towards the new goal of building a modernized country. By the end of last year, according to President Xi, in a central meeting, a lot of important points about the three roles work have been mentioned. For example, we have to stick to the national strategies and also stabilize the social development and economy by ensuring the three roles, ensure the supplies, and also stabilize the agricultural development, guarantee food security, and avoid massive returning to the poverty. We have also made important work arrangements. All these work has set a solid foundation for the elaboration of the 2022 #1 central document and also demonstrated the direction for our work in the future. It can help us to realize the centennial goal and also to realize our ambitions. So agriculture and the rural areas will continue to be a stabilizing force in our national development. Second, major content of the document In a new era and in a new stage of development, the three rurals work should put the focus on rural revitalization. We have to apply the instructions of President Xi. In this year's #1 central document, there are no new themes. We have to go back to that important goal of rural revitalization. Stability would be the most important topic. For 2022, we have realized an all-round work arrangement. In the document, we can find 8 different major parts and 35 articles. For example, 3 key areas, 1 strengthening and 2 bottom lines. For the 2 bottom lines, the bottom line of protecting the food security and the bottom line to avoid massive returning to poverty. It is said that we have to guarantee the food supply and production, stick to the 1.8 billion mu of arable land, ensure a stable area of plantation, and also to guarantee a stable production of crops of 1.3 trillion jin. For the counties and also areas that have already shaken off poverty, we have to help them to steer away from sliding back into poverty again. For the major tasks, for the rural development, we have to pay attention to the integration of the primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors, encourage farmers to create their own business or find the jobs near their homes. For the rural construction, we have to develop infrastructure and also carry out programs that are beneficial to the farmers. For the management of the countryside, we have to put the focus on the development of grassroots organizations and mechanisms, and also create a lot of interesting activities for the farmers. And finally, we also have to ensure the stability of the countryside and the safety of the people. And we also have to stick to the leadership of the CBC Central Committee on the directions of the work of the rural areas, and also invite more innovative measures. In general, in this year's #1 central document, we have reiterated the importance of realizing the goal of rural revitalization. It's very practical and enlightening. You can see that a lot of highlights and also yearly goals have been mentioned and clarified in this document. Now I have concluded the briefing. The floor is open now for your questions. Please first identify yourself before raising the question. I'm from CCTV. Last year, in the central meeting, we have strengthened from a strategic level the guarantee of the agro-food. How can we guarantee the food security in our country? Thank you very much. This is a wonderful question. President Xi has reiterated that the food security in our country should be guaranteed by our own people. So we have to produce the food by ourselves. The production of crops for 7 years in a row has been stabilized above 1.3 trillion jin. We have sufficient supply and also enough storage of crops. You may have already noticed that since last year, international market has witnessed an increase in price of the crops. Disasters and COVID-19 have imposed a lot of challenges to all of us. Despite that, we have stabilized the price of crops in the domestic market. Market-based operations are in good forms. It means that we have sufficient supply and guarantee for the food in the market. We have the confidence to guarantee the food security in our country. However, it doesn't mean that we can lower the guard in this area. We have to guarantee not only the quantity but also the quality of the food supply. And also the mixture of the food supply is also changing. There's a non-elastic demand increase, and there are also contradictions between the supply and demand. In the short term, we still have to work even harder to fix the problem. At the same time, we're also facing the environmental constraints. Against this background, we have to guarantee the food security, which is the red line for our policy. We should never lose sight of this red line, so we have to carry out practical measures. There are three major ways. First of all, accountability system. In China, in order to guarantee the crop plantation, we should not only rely on the advantages and comparable advantages. For the major producing areas, major selling areas, and also the balancing areas, each of them has their own responsibilities to guarantee the productivity and also the plantation areas. For the areas of producing, they have to increase the integrated capacity of growing the crops. For the major areas of sales, they have to improve their self-sufficiency, and for the balancing area, they also have to have enough self-support. The objective of crop production in 2022, this goal has been approved by the State Council. We have divided this goal to different local governments. Moving forward, we will continue to work with the plan in mind and also have this accountability system in place. We urge different levels of government to publish their own plans for this year. At the municipal level and also provincial levels, the governments have to shoulder their responsibilities and also see to the guarantee of the productivity. Second, we have to rely on the farmers to grow the crops. If they can gain money by growing the crops, then we would be reassured that there will be sufficient supply of crops. This year, we will set up this income guarantee system for the farmers. We have to guarantee that farmers can have sufficient financial income from the growing crops. We have to stabilize the purchasing price for wheat and rice from the government side, and also give more subsidies for growing other crops. For the major producers of crops, we have to ensure their plantation. At the same time, we have to strengthen the weak links and also urge the bigger producers to mobilize the smaller ones. In general, we have to make sure that the farmers growing the crops, they can gain much more money than before. And third, basic pillars of support. We have to rely on the land and science and technologies to increase the productivity. For example, by improving the qualities of the seeds and other materials. For the seeds, last year, we have already started a national survey on the germplasm and also the seed resources, and to launch a program to protect the IPR concerning the seeds. This year, we have a mixture of policies to revitalize the sector of the seeds. For the arable land, we have to guarantee the basic area of the farmland, hold local governments accountable for the protection of the arable land, make sure that the farmland will be used for the plantation of the staple food and also for the other major agricultural products as well as the animals' feed. High standard farmland, in principle, should be used for the production of the food crop only. So we have mentioned different categories of the farmland: high quality farmland, permanent farmland, and also basic farmlands. At the same time, we also have to consolidate the weak links with the mechanization and use more machineries in the farming. So that's all for this question. The next one, please. Thank you. I'm from the China Review. This year is an important year for an all-round rural revitalization. In this year's #1 central document, for the work arrangement and also for the work mechanism, what are the new spots? Thank you very much for this question. After lifting the counties out of poverty, we are moving to the next stage of realizing an all-round rural revitalization. According to President Xi, this is a strategic transfer of the priorities of our work. For the elimination of poverty, we have a very complete mechanism of work. So we have to copy that experience when realizing the all-round rural revitalization. Now we are in a new era. And currently, if we want to realize the goal of 3 rurals development, we have to put our focus on the all-round rural revitalization. And that explains why this year's #1 central document has put so much importance on the goal of all-round rural revitalization. For the macroscopic and macroscopic areas, you can see we have different measures in place to realize this goal. We have to take practical measures to yield practical and tangible results to benefit the people. First of all, we have to ensure the governments are showing their responsibilities. We have to apply the regulations. Every level of government should shoulder their responsibilities, and also we have to form a synergy together across different levels of authorities. Moving forward, we're about to carry out a plan, elaboration for the accountability system to realize the goal of all-round rural revitalizations. For the 5 different levels of the hierarchy, the party secretaries will be held accountable if they are failing in realizing the goals. And we also have the assessment system in place to see your performance in realizing this goal, so that we have this very complete system of accountability in place. And second, we have to improve the mechanism of work. As is mentioned before, for the good practices, we have to copy and duplicate them in other areas. What we have concluded from the previous stage of elimination of poverty, we can also duplicate them in the realization of the goal of all-round rural revitalization. Last year, we have published the promotion law for the rural revitalization, according to which, for the social mobilization, guarantee of the elements, assessment, working reports, and the monitoring and also the inspections, we have a whole mixture of policies and tools in place. We have to vastly mobilize all different social resources and energies to realize the goal of rural revitalization. And third is to change our mentality and methodology. Of course, we have to ensure that rural revitalization can enjoy a targeted work policies. This is a long-term work, and we should not assume that it can be realized overnight. So we have to show a lot of patience. We cannot rush in this area, and we should not stop at this superficial level. We have to follow the rules of the rural development and also apply more mature measures to promote the realization of the goals. We will also organize the programs of training and learnings according to the instructions of President Xi. At different local levels, especially from the grassroots levels, we have new leaders and new colleagues. We have to ask them to learn the instructions and guidelines mentioned by President Xi, so that we will not lose sight of the major direction of our work and take practical measures to realize the three rurals work. And fourth, we have to strengthen the organizations. According to this year's #1 document, different officers of the leading groups on rural work have to work together to promote their coordinated negotiation mechanism. Under the leadership of the CPC Central Committee and the Office of the Central Rural Work Leading Group, different authorities, including the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, the Administration for National Rural Revitalization, as well as the rural schools, they have different responsibilities. For example, MARA is in charge of the integration of the realization of goals, and different offices, they are responsible for the execution of the programs. Even though each authority has its own responsibilities, we cannot divide the work in a monotone manner, and we have to always put the focus on synergy. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from the Fengmian News. Last year, we have been confronted with the combined challenges of natural disasters and also the COVID-19. What new measures will you put in place to respond to the new challenges, and you can make sure that people will not fall back into poverty? Thank you very much for your attention given to the consolidation of the results of poverty elimination. It is said by President Xi that we have to avoid massive returning to the poverty. Over the past 1 year, we have worked under the instructions of the upper authorities to consolidate the results of the poverty elimination. We have mainly accomplished the following. First of all, monitor the risk and also put in place an assistance system. 70% of the people have been cleared from the risk of falling back into poverty, and for the rest 30%, after a period of efforts, we can make sure that they will not slide back into poverty. Second, for the connection of the works, for the policies of assistance, we also have the adaptation and also the improvement of the policies. For the key areas of assistance, we have published the subsidies and also the policy tools. We also urge the collaboration between different areas and regions in a country, for example, between the East and the West. We also have the mechanism and groups of the work in place. At the same time, we have the assessment mechanism in place to make sure that performance is on the way. And third, we ensure an investment of more than 150 billion RMB to consolidate the results. For example, we help the farmers and also the rural residents who have shaken off poverty to find new jobs. People lift out of poverty, they can realize the net income of 15,000 RMB with an increase of double digits. According to all those statistics, you can see that we have consolidated the results of the poverty elimination, and we have also cleared the risk of massive sliding back into the poverty. Moving forward, we will work under the instructions of President Xi, CPC Central Committee, and the State Council, and continue to consolidate the results of the poverty elimination and make sure that people can enjoy better life in the countryside and avoid the massive sliding back to the poverty. We have 4 priorities. First of all, for the mechanism of monitoring, we have to strengthen the mechanism. For the monitoring, we have to be better targeted. We have to set well-targeted monitoring system for all the people that have a risk of falling back into poverty. We have to include them into this monitoring system. We also have to keep an eye on the people that are suffering from the other conditions, for example, diseases and disasters. Once there is a possible risk of people falling back into poverty, we have to take prompt measures to ensure that they will not fall back into poverty. And we also have to improve the efficiency of the monitoring work. And second, for the increase of income for the people who have shaken off poverty, we have to build up industries in the rural areas. Through development, we can better coordinate the efforts in consolidating the poverty elimination, apply the policies coming from the central level, and also to increase the subsidies from the government to build up the marketing and also the manufacturing sectors in the area, and also help to create new jobs for the migrant workers, and also to build up family workshops in the rural areas, and also create more jobs for the public benefits, so that we can finally ensure there's an increase of creation of the jobs. And third, for the regional assistance for the major counties, we have to elaborate a plan of assistance so that we can consolidate the weak links and build up their self-help capabilities. In this case, we can make sure that there is a sustainable elimination of poverty and also the efforts to avoid the falling back into poverty. We also have following up measures so that for the next period to come, people can continue to move towards wealth and a better life. And fourth, the policies should be maintained. It's not the end of our work. Once we have completed the goal of poverty elimination, we have to continue with the following up measures. For example, for the counties that have shaken off poverty, we have to take measures of support to help the farmers and also the rural residents for the next period to come. Moving forward, the next question, please. Thank you. I'm from China Daily. In this year's central document, the #1 central document, it is mentioned that we have to continue to protect the basic farmland. What are the new measures in place to realize this goal? To Mr. Wu, please. Thank you very much. You have mentioned a very important question. Farmland is one of the basic and fundamental elements of our rural work. President Xi has reiterated several times the importance of protection of the basic farmland. For example, the protection of the 1.8 billion mu of farmland. We have to make sure that the farmland should be used for agricultural use and more specifically for the plantation of the crops. This year's #1 central document, we have included a lot more policies about the protection of the farmland, increase the quantity and improve the quality, tap into the potential. First of all, about the quantity, we have to stick to the red line of 1.8 billion mu of basic farmland. First of all, for the definition of the nature for the farmland and also the permanent farmland, as well as the construction rules, we have to make sure 3 control lines. And second, for the positioning we have to clarify the total area and also the geographic locations of these basic farmlands. We have to clarify which piece of land is the basic farmland and which parcel is the permanent farmland. We have to make everything clear in our documents at different levels. And third is to make it clear the responsibility of different levels of government. For the local government, they have to sign the contract and documents to shoulder their responsibility. We also have the assessment system and the veto system, as well as the lifetime accountability system in place. For the improvement of quality, first of all, we have to develop the high-quality farmland. We will develop 100 million more of high-quality land and also realize 400 million more of land of water-saving policies application. Also protect the black soil. We have this national program of protection for the black soil, 80 million more of black soil. And third, for the whole process monitoring of balance of farmland to make sure we have a sustainable use of arable land. And we have an appropriate proportion of arable land in the total land area locally. And third, we have the control of land use. If you want to turn an arable land into construction land, you have to go through a very strict process of examination. If you don't apply for that process, then you are working against the laws and regulations. We have a very strict regulation system in place to guarantee that we have sufficient arable land in the country. We also have to clarify the priorities in the land use. As is mentioned by the minister, we have to give the priorities to the cultivation of crops and sugar plants, oil plants, as well as the feeds for the animals. For the high-quality farmland, it should be used for 100% of crop plantation. We also have to tap into the potential of the arable land and farmland. For the qualified alkaline soil and the other backup soils, we can gradually develop those pieces of land and turn them into arable land for the unused land and wasted land. While respecting the rules of ecological development, we can also turn them into other use, for example, by developing the photovoltaic energy. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from the County Economic Development Journal. Increase the farmers' income is also a very important part of this year's rural document. What are the directions clarified in this year's #1 central document? You have asked a very good question. Industry-based efforts can be considered a very important part in realizing the goal of rural revitalization. According to President Xi, to develop the rural industries is an important and key method to realize the all-round rural revitalization. In this year's #1 central document, we have made very clear requirements for the industry development in the countryside. First of all, we have to focus on the integration of the primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors development. We have to give more support to the farmers. While developing the plantation and animal raising, we also have to diversify the sectors of industries and economy in the countryside to add more values into the agricultural development. For example, the agro-tourism, e-commerce, and digital economy. Vertically, we have to build up the whole value chain in the countryside, and especially develop the downstream of this value chain. For example, we have to gradually prolong this value chain and increase more added value in our products. And horizontally, we have to encourage the combination of agriculture with the other sectors, for example, the elderly care and also tourism, as well as the entertainment, so that we can increase the value embedded into agriculture. Across the regions, we have to develop the industries beneficial to the farmers. We have to bring into full play the compared advantages and also mobilize the development of industries that can help to create a lot of jobs and also to boost the local economy. At the county level, we have to give more support to the development and layout of the local industries and also help them to increase their capacity in the marketing and sales of their products. At the county level and township level, we can have this different layout of functionalities and sectors of economy, encourage the processing development, and also guide the transfer of the processing sectors and form the clusters of processing factories. We also encourage the farmers to find the jobs near their home so that they can find new sources of increase of income. By developing the local industries, we have to pay attention to the equality of the wealth creation. We should not allow the creation of wealth and accumulation of wealth only for the bosses, but also we have to benefit employees. That means we have to benefit the farmers. We have to mobilize all the farmers and enable everyone to benefit from the increase of income. We also encourage the development of the social services organizations so that the farmers can better share the results of the application of all those policies in place. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from the Economic Daily. Last year, we have realized a delay in the sowing of the wheat due to the flooding season. How can we cope with such a situation and ensure the food security? Thank you very much for this question. You have noticed a very important point in our work. Today, we have encountered this big obstacle. Last year, in autumn, there was a heavy blow from the flood in different provinces like Shanxi, Henan. In total, 5 provinces, they have been hit by a rarely seen flood in autumn. 110 million mu of wheat have been sown with a delay of 1.5 months. That area of plantation represents about 1/3 of the total area of plantation of wheat. The winter wheat has ensured a basic plantation area. However, due to the heavy blow from the autumn flood, we have been put under great pressure for the growing. Currently, the growing situation for this winter wheat is quite complicated. 1/4 of the staple food has encountered great difficulties and also challenges. Facing this challenging situation, we have made stern determination to work even harder than before to guarantee the supply of the summer crops so that throughout the whole year we can guarantee sufficient supply of the crops. First of all, the management of the land for the growing of the wheat. It's about 3 months before the harvesting of the summer crops of the wheat. And in this critical moment of the growth for the wheat, at critical stages of growth of the crop, we have to apply the most advanced technologies so that we can catch up with the quantity of productivity of the wheat. For example, at the greening period, we have to catch up with the application of the fertilizer. And for the rapid growth period, we have to keep our crop from the influence of the drought and also the cold temperatures. And for the next stage of growth to come, we also have to do the necessary sprays, and we have to take the other measures for different provinces at different local levels. We have already elaborated a map of division of the duties. This is the base for our next step of division of obligations. Today, we have also dispatched the experts to work at grassroots levels so that they will give the insight instructions to the farmers. With the instructions from the experts and also the application of all necessary measures, we can make sure that the wheat can still enjoy a favorable productivity. And second, the reduction of the risks of natural disasters. You know that this year, there is a high risk of extreme weather conditions. Spring drought, spring cold temperatures, and also the summer drought may cast a heavy burden on the productivity of the crops, so we have to be prepared in advance and also make up the plans in accordance to that. We also have to make full use of the subsidies and also the earmarked funds to help the farmers to get rid of the impact from those natural disasters and to minimize as much as possible the negative impacts from the disasters. Last year, we have sufficient rainfall. This is a good news, but at the same time, this has also increased the risk of the pests and insects. This year, we are facing a higher risk of insects and pests. For example, multiple diseases related to excessive water. They are harming the growth of the wheat, so we have to mobilize our monitoring system. We have to elaborate this unified plan so we can coordinate the efforts at different levels of authorities. And we have to make sure that the pests and insects will not harm the general productivity of the crops. Not long ago, we have convened the conference to guide the spring season plantation work. Currently, at country level, we are studying the possibility of issuing the subsidies to support the spring season plantation. We will consolidate the plantation of the spring paddy rice plantation and also the autumn crops. We have to make sure that the subsidies will go to each household so that we can make sure we have sufficient plantation areas of the spring paddy rice. For the fertilizers, chemicals, as well as the seeds necessary for the spring plantation, we have to make sure that farmers can receive sufficient support. We also have to keep an eye on the guarantee of the quality so we can meet the demand of the people for the plantation in the spring season. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from the Countryside magazine. Rural development has been put on high on the agenda of the central authorities. We have to improve people's livelihood and also improve the living environment for the rural citizens. What are the new plans and work arrangements as well as requirements for this year's rural development? Rural development action is an important decision in the 5th plenary session of the 19th CPC Congress. According to President Xi, to develop the rural areas, we have to make long-term efforts. The action plan for the rural development will be soon released. In this year's #1 central document, on the basis of conclusion of experience of the past, we have made even more clear requirements. First of all, we have to stick to the universally beneficial programs of development in the countryside. One basic goal of rural development is to improve the living conditions for the farmers. We have to make sure that the farmers, they can enjoy a modern life in the countryside. We should not, first of all, set the goals too high. We have to be very down to earth in setting up our goals. And we also have to consider different conditions of different locales for the drinking water network, housing conditions, and road conditions. We have to continue with the infrastructure building programs, especially for those areas that are beneficial to the production of the crops and also to people's livelihood. For example, the cold chain and also the transportation, we have to put even more focus on that. And second, all the programs should be running on the basis of benefits for the people. For people, if they are willing to join our programs, of course, we have to give more support to those programs and speed up the application of those programs. And for the other programs that people have shown less willingness to join, maybe we can wait. And for the infrastructure programs, we have to protect the ancient villages and also respect the rules for the ecological protection. We should not hurry in demolishing the ancient villages in order to build up the new villages, because we also have to respect the rules of ecological development and protect the rural cultural sites. And thirdly, we have to apply a bottom-up method in mobilizing the farmers. Farmers will be the major players in developing their own hometown. If they have the willingness, we have to give them more authority, especially for the development around their houses, like the management of the local environment and also the upgrading of the public toilets. We can give more trust to the farmers so that they can shoulder more responsibility and have more decisions to make by themselves. Governments should also play its part of role. I would like to add up some more information. Just now, Administrator Liu Huanxin has very well elaborated on this issue. And I think there are two keywords or two key sentences about obtaining this goal. First of all, for the mindset of work, rural revitalization is for the benefits of the people. We have to do this work for the people, and we have to realize the goal of rural revitalization for the farmers and for the rural residents. This is also according to the instructions of President Xi. We have to put more focus on the quality instead of quantity. So now you have a better understanding about the ambition, the goals, and also the methodology of our work on this side. Thank you. I'm from the Farmers Daily. Rural management and development is also one of the top priorities. What are the new measures of this year? For this question, because the National Rural Revitalization Administration is in charge of this issue, so I'll give the floor to Mr. Liu. Thank you very much. President Xi has mentioned that we have to make more innovations so that we can do a better job in the management of the rural area. This year, in the #1 central document for this topic, there are also some points made. First of all, to build up the grassroots organizations. In order to do the grassroots work well in the countryside, we have to build up this leaders team at the grassroots level. For example, the local leaders and officials, they have to play a better role. And we are changing the generations of leaders, moving to a new group of leaders. And we have to build up this young group of leaders, and also we have to build up this network of management. apply more digital tools to enable our work and make it more efficient. The local committees of work should also play a bigger role. For example, for the decision making, first of all, they have to have this voting process, and finally, they also have to make it public, all the decisions taken at the level of the committee. For all the key areas, nobody can take the decision alone. We always have to go through this approval system. At the same time, we have to combine the rule of law and the rule of ethics. Monitoring system is also important. We also have this system of the surveillance. Inspectors will be dispatched on a regular basis to monitor the performance of our county and township, even village level officials. And next, we have to take more innovative measures. Methodology should be easy to understand for the farmers. We also have to enrich the spiritual life of the farmers. For example, create more supply of goods for the spiritual civilization, engage more farmers in entertainment activities. We can try to create more low-cost entertainment programs. And we don't seek to create fancy programs. We have to be pragmatic in doing all our work at this county level. We also have to bolster the countryside-based cultural development. For example, we have the pilot program in place. We have accumulated a lot of good practices, for example, by using the checklist and using the points of good deeds. Moving forward, we can continue to yield more beneficial results from this work of rural management, and more tangible results can be witnessed by our farmers and enjoyed by all the citizens. Thank you. I'm from the First Finance. In recent years, every year, the soybean importation has been stabilized at 100 million tons. Last year, we have narrowed down a little bit the importation, but still it has been stabilized at such a level. What are the new measures to guarantee the plantation of soybeans? We have already realized the basic balance of supply and demand of the crops. For the staple food, there's no problem, but there is a structural issue. It's a relatively low self-sufficiency with the oil plants, including the soybeans. Today, with the ever-growing levels of people's living standards and also the increase of the need for the animal feeds, we have a higher demand for the soybeans and the other crops. As you have mentioned, for 2019, we have imported about 100 million tons of soybean, and last year it's 90 million tons of soybeans imported. Currently, for the guarantee of people's demand, for example, the soybeans used for the bean cake, there's no problem with our self-sufficient plantation. But still, we have to import a huge amount of soybeans for the other use, for example, for the animal feed. Moving forward, we have to make even harder efforts in order to transfer the mix of the production of the soybeans. For example, as is mentioned before, we have to increase the plantation area of the oil crops. We can take baby steps to realize the practical progress, not only for the crops, but also for the oil. We have to ensure the self-sufficiency. First of all, we have to gradually restore the plantation area of the soybeans in the northeastern part of China. You know that traditionally northeastern part of China is a major producer for the soybeans. We have to restore the area of the plantation for soybeans and other oil plants in the area. For example, the effective rotation of the plants. In the northeastern part of China, in some areas, we can also turn the wet farmland into the dry farmland so that we can produce the dry farming. In some areas in the northeastern part of China, we have already exploited in an excessive manner the groundwater. In those areas, maybe we can consider to transform the wet farmland into the dry farmland. We can also have this combined plantation of corn and soybean. For example, 2 lines of corns and 4 lines of soybeans in order to satisfy their respective demand for sunshine. We have already carried out some pilot programs in the southwestern areas, Shanghai, and we have realized more than 7 million mu of plantation, and we can see from the current practices that this belt-like combination of plantations is quite effective. It can help us to solve the contradiction between the plantation of corn and soybean. In the northeastern part of China, in the past, we have to replace one with another, whether we have to grow the soybean or the corn. We have to make the choice. Currently, we can do them both. We can realize this belt-like combination of the corn and soybean at the same time. And in the Yellow River area, the Huai River area, we can try to expand the cultivation of this belt-like combination of corn and soybeans. We also have to catch up with the mechanization. To realize this goal, the central budget has issued an earmarked fund to support this program for those large-scale producers of crops. They can even receive an extra of subsidies from the social service organizations. So for all the farmers and the large-scale producers, if they have the willingness, they can receive more subsidies by practicing this belt-shape combination of plantation of corns and the soybeans. They can also be incorporated into the insurance system. Soybeans can be used for food and also for the fuels. There are other plants, for example, the rape and also the peanuts. And also the oil tea plant. We have to put equal focus on the development of that. For the rape, they can be developed in the southern part of China. Last year, we have added an extra of 5 million mu. For the peanuts, it's around the river basin area of the Yellow River. In the area with the precipitation of 400 millimeters, we have to stabilize the cultivation area and productivity of the peanuts. For the oil tea plants, we have to first of all enlarge the plantation area. Currently, we can still tap into the potential of that plant. And today, we are using this crop to upgrade the efficiency of some low output forests. And for the sesame and the other plants, we can also try to increase their productivity and plantation area. So for the oil plants, by 5 to 10 years of efforts, we can expect to see a significant increase of our self-sufficiency in the oil plants. Since we have no more questions to ask, I'd like to close today's session, and I'd like to say thank you to Minister Tang and the other speakers.